John from Ripewave with this video about this Orei video splitter. And this is more than about this particular video splitter, but it's about solving use case challenges that you might have with HDMI, things that you're trying to solve. And I've learned to look at Orei as a source for solving these use case problems. Now, I have a particular use case that I'm solving with this video, and it's something that I addressed a couple of years ago with when I bought my first Orei products to do video splitting. But they have many other solutions out there. The other thing that we're going to tackle in this video is that HDMI 2.1 is a lot more than getting 8K resolution. There's HDR compatibility, and there are new HDMI features, auto low latency mode, variable refresh rate, etc., that you could benefit even with a 4K video signal. The challenge I'm trying to solve here is we'd like to bring in some more inputs when we do our processor receiver reviews, and we have a Sony PlayStation PS5, and that is 8K capable, but it's also able to do 4K 120 and support a lot of these new modes. And we want to make sure that that isn't lost when we put it through a splitter and we're comparing multiple products. But there are other use cases beyond what we use at Ripewave Audio. I believe this solution was really for those who have multi-room and they want to have one Blu-ray player or one streaming device, and they want to go to multiple monitors, either in the same room or more usually in a home situation in multiple rooms. But when we think about like a restaurant, a bar where they're, especially a sports bar where they have all these televisions out and they're pointing in maybe a different direction so different tables can see the same football game, baseball game, whatever they're watching, and it's one source being split out many times. So this is the use case that we're focused on with the Orei products here. Now, just take a step back. The problem I'm trying to solve is a test setup. And if you've been following our channel, you know that we have our ABC switcher that's we're using, and we'd like to be able to test at least 3 AV receivers, processors simultaneously, and using a switcher allows us to quickly switch between receiver 1, 2, and 3, or processor 1, 2, and 3, and any combination in between for a whole complement of speakers that we have up there. And we have, all the ear level speakers, we got the height speakers, we got our subwoofers, and each of them on its own switcher, so we can quickly hear the differences between these products. And the product we're using for that is the Knob Sound or Duke Audio One Little Bear, and it takes balanced and unbalanced connections and puts that out to our amplifiers. We're using all external amplifiers into our speakers. And it's a very passive device, very clean. It doesn't introduce any signal noise, and that's why we like this. We know that people have reviewed this and put it through test equipment and said it's so negligible, the noise that gets introduced, you don't have to worry about it. So this is a very good device to do that ABC switching, albeit it's a manual switch. We don't have a remote for it. And we use cable snakes and adapters from RCA to XLR to accommodate any combination of what's coming out of the back of a receiver or processor. And here's that setup that we have with those switchers used for each pair of signal. Of course, when we're talking about subwoofers, well, left and right are really the front and rear subwoofer. And of course, the center channel, we're only utilizing one of the inputs. We're here to talk about today is the video side, not the audio side of this test setup. We wanted to be able to have one common source go to all of these units, and then we want to quickly switch between units. We can see the same program. Now we could have 2, let's say, Apple TVs set up, but then you have to queue everything up in the same way, and then you've got always that challenge as well. Was one Apple TV set up a little differently than the other? So you maintain more consistency. The same Apple TV, the same cables going into the splitter, and then it's getting split off 4 ways. And of course, we always like to use the same cables going to every receiver or processor out there, and ultimately gets to the TV on the output. So the output of each receiver or processor goes to one of the 4 inputs on our television, the one that's right behind me here. And so typically we only have 3 set up at a time, but we can accommodate up to 4. And in our reviews, we like to test multiple sources. We hooked up our ultra high definition Blu-ray player from Sony there, and we could use something like a matrix splitter, let's say a 2x4 splitter, or you can consider this a switch. But in that case, you may be having to switch between the two, and they're not both actively going out at the same time. So we decided on using 2 splitters, 2 1x4 splitters to achieve this signal here. And we knew that the Ultra Blu-ray player is putting out HDMI 2.0, and the Apple TV 4K from 2022 is HDMI 2.1 compliant, but still only a 4K resolution. So this splitter that we got initially did only the 2.0 standard, and it was just fine for what we had to do. And now we're thinking about adding our PlayStation 5 unit over here. I just adjusted the camera so you could see that. But that we know can do higher frame rates with 4K, and it can do 8K resolution depending on the game you're playing and what settings you've put out. But it also supports some of these newer HDMI 2.1 features. We're thinking about moving to an 8K splitter. Now at the time, 2 years ago when we bought the original 2 units, they did have an 8K splitter. They were more costly, particularly if you wanted to go to 4 channels versus 2. So I've talked about Orei as being our go-to supplier for these types of HDMI accessories. Yes, they have splitters, but they also have extenders. So if you want to go a long distance to HDMI, of course, depending on which HDMI standard and content you're putting through, you may be limited to 10 feet or 15 feet with your HDMI wired cable. So having something that's an extender, if you have a projector at the back of the room, or if you want to go into another room of your house, using an extender is very useful. They have wireless, fiber, HD-based T, and IP Cat6/7 solutions. They also have switchers, so you can switch between 2 sources going to 1 output. They have matrix switches, so up to a 8x8 matrix switches, and they even allow for video walls and multi-view. That would be a single TV where you can see 2, 4 images kind of split off in quadrants, so you can look at multiple sources on one TV. Very nice. And they have converters. They can take AV signal to HDMI, or go HDMI or to or from component video, or even VGA. And they have audio extractors. If you have an older television that doesn't support ARC or eARC, and it doesn't have an optical or an RCA audio output on it, these audio extractors can be very useful. I particularly think their eARC option is very good, because even my television behind me doesn't support eARC, it only supports ARC. They also have computer solutions. We'll take a USB in and go into something like a docking station, a 1x2, 1x3, or even 1x4, going into your computer solution. And they have KVM switches, keyboard, video, and mouse switches. But today we're focused on splitters. So Orei has a pretty large portfolio of splitters, so you can choose which one that you want to use for your solution. And I mentioned before, we started with a 4K 4 output Orei splitter, and this was the UHDS 104. This followed the HDMI 2.0B standard, so 1 input in, 4 out. All these models support enhanced EDID management. And when as part of the HDMI standard, the television dialogues with the source to find out what type of content is coming its way, how these things are going to identify itself. It knows what's on the other end, and this is how this handshake begins. And doing that EDI management in a good way ensures that the television and everything in the chain is going to know what to do. Now, the particular device I've got two of them here. They've got all the blue lights on behind me here. It did not have any audio extraction, but I didn't need that. I can send that HDMI cable to my receivers, to my processors, or my TV, and it will do the audio extraction. So we don't need that, but if you do need it, they do have models. Any model with an A at the end of the model number does the audio extraction, so that's the hint there. Now in the 4K realm, they also had these Pro models that would also do downscaling from 4K to 1080p. Now my television can do 4K, so there was no need to do downscaling, so I didn't buy the unit that did the downscaling. But if I didn't have that capability, the downscaling would be important to me. Now this is only a 4K TV, not an 8K TV. So if I do get an 8K signal from my PlayStation 5, it's going to be important to me to downscale from 8K to 4K so this television knows what to do with it. The good thing is their BK line of splitters will do just that. It will go from 8K to 4K or even down to 1080p, whether it's 8K or 4K source. We'll do the full downscaling with those models. And you can see here they have anywhere in between 1 in, 2 out to 1 in, 8 out in the series of products that I show on the screen. They also have a 16 out, but that doesn't support the newer HDMI signal, so we're not going to talk about that here. Now the price that they show on their website is a little higher than what you can get it at. On their website itself, they show that price crossed out with a sale price. Now I don't know how long they keep that sale price active, but Amazon is essentially mirroring that sale price. If you get it from Amazon, you're going to pretty much get it the same. The only discrepancy I saw was on that first model where the Orei site was actually a couple dollars cheaper, but then Amazon has these coupons, so who knows. So to support all the capabilities that the Sony PlayStation has, I'm looking at the BK-104A, and that was what Orei has sent me. I'll tell you that Orei reached out to me and said, hey, can you do another video on our products? And I said, sure. And I said, what can we send you? I said, send me the 8K version so I can start playing with that, because all I have is your 4K version. So they said, absolutely. So here I am a few months later. It's been my delay on my end. I take responsibility for that, so I'm excited about doing this. But I also wanted to kind of line it up with my review of the Marantz AV20, and I've got a new RMC 1 Plus, hopefully coming soon. I'm waiting for stock to build up from Emotiva to ensure that I'm getting what I expect out of this product. And it's going to be able to take care of not only everything that the PlayStation 5 can send at us, but also the other devices I have, the Nintendo Switch, the Apple TV devices, any other streamers I might bring in for testing, and my ultra high definition Blu-ray player. And of course, we probably will get a Switch 2 because my son keeps asking for it. So I put this table together to understand, for those streamers, for those game consoles, what parts of the HDMI format does each of them support, including the HDR and the advanced features that came with 2.1. And I came up with this table, and it's showing here that, the old Switch, of course, that's got the least capable. That was HDMI 1.4, so it only does 4K 30. But the Switch 2 will now give you 4K 60 and 4K 120, but it's not going to do 8K. But you can see here that the titles of these columns, the ones that are in the yellow font, these are features that weren't really officially added to the HDMI standard until version 2.1. So having a switcher that supports 2.1 fully is what I'm looking for. So I can get that 4K 120 with these game consoles. Now you're not going to get 4K 120 from any of the streaming devices or 8K 60. 4K 60 is really the most you're going to get. Now 4K 60 was supported in 2.0 HDMI, so there's nothing special there. But when you start looking at HDR pass-through, hybrid log gamma was supported, HDR10, but then we got 10 plus, IMAX Enhance, and Dolby Vision. Well, you could do it in HDMI 2.0, wasn't again officially supported. Now that means a lot to me to have something officially supported. That means the risk of having errors and issues and bugs is much lower. The other things on the advanced sets, the variable refresh rates, the auto low latency mode, SBTM, quick media switching, quick frame transport, those are all added only after 2.1. And we can see the Apple TV and the Roku device are the only two right now that support quick media switching, but so does the Xbox support it. Quick frame transport, that's on the PlayStation 5, the Xbox unit on that. A lot of things are supporting variable refresh rate and auto low latency mode, particularly all the newer game consoles and the Roku devices. Now the Apple TV is variable refresh rate only right now, but we'll see what the 2025 version, which we're anticipating will come out this year, of the Apple TV might check off a few more boxes. So you can see this chart is helpful, and nothing really checks them all, though the Xbox with the Series S and X comes the closest, everything but the HDR10 Plus. Now looking at the Orei devices. Now my existing UHDS104 was a 2.0B device. It just supported 4K 60. Didn't do 4K 120 or 8K 60. They don't talk about in their manual or their website what they do for HDR pass-through. I'm assuming that they do HDR10 pass-through with that, something we can check into further because it's not specified there. But it won't support any of the HDMI 2.1 features because it wasn't supporting HDMI 2.1. But now you look at the BK-104, anything in that BK series, it's going to support across the board. The only thing they don't list on their website or their manuals is support for IMAX Enhance. Now, we know that IMAX Enhance rides on HDR10 Plus. If it's passing through HDR10 Plus, I'm thinking chances are it will also pass through IMAX Enhance. And IMAX Enhance also brings with it, the audio signal that's riding on, the DTS:X, and that will pass through on this device. It will pass through all those immersive formats. My guess is it will. It just maybe they didn't go and get the certification from IMAX Enhance, and they can then not talk about it. This gives us a good sense that this is going to work well with everything that we might want to test out. I just got to go back here to the comparison table, the models, and point out here that some of the models have the audio extraction and some of them don't. What you'll notice is the size of the unit is maybe a little smaller with the one without the audio extraction. So if size is an issue for you, you might want to look into a model that doesn't have audio extraction versus those that do. And the price difference, in some cases, they're the exact same price. So here is this unit. We'll take it out of its box. This is the new 8K unit, the BK-104A. So it does have the audio extraction. And we're looking at the back here. And you can follow on the slide a little bit better. But you put your input in here and you've got your 4 outputs. And then here is your extracted audio. It will give you digital output in the form of optical Toslink, and it'll give you analog output in the form of a 3.5 millimeter stereo jack connection. And that's it. There's no coax digital output or anything like that other than that. And then you've got your power connection, which is comes with this, I believe. Let's open up the second level of this box. And yes, there is a wall connection here. And they do supply in here a North America adapter. So I'll just have to slide that in. And that will work. So I imagine wherever you are in the world, they give you the right adapter for your power connector. And there is a printed user manual. I've already read this online. It's not terribly extensive, but it does go and show you these front and rear panels that I put on the graphic here for you. And on the front of this, you will have LEDs for power, whether your input is being, acknowledged here as being active, and then if any of your outputs are not active. And I find these LEDs very helpful. Sometimes a cable gets a little loose and I said, why am I not seeing output 2? This is why I'm not getting a signal. And then I push that cable in a little bit better and I can see the blue light turns on, and that helps me out a lot. Then there's the dip switch for the EDID. So this is going to give your how it's going to identify itself to your television and everything for syncing up. By default, it's going to copy out whatever output 1 is to all the other 4 outputs, so it's consistent. Now ultimately it's all go into the same television in my case, but if you're going to different televisions, each television may have a different capability. So then you have to find the least common denominator out there, and you may have to switch those dip switches to hard set it to a particular resolution and audio output that you desire. So that's something you can do through those dip switches. For me, the default of copying out to everything that's on output 1 to the other 3 works just fine. The other thing you get on the front of this is a micro USB firmware update. The older ones did have it. Now, I haven't checked to see if there's a firmware update for the older unit. Maybe I should take a look to see if there is. But there is a way to do firmware updates through a USB cable. So employing this in our setup, we now add in the BK-104A 1x4 splitter to our setup, and now we have 3 sources for each of our test units, and it will work great for that. Now I've gone and got all new 8K capable, certified HDMI cables, no longer than 10 feet, to work with this new splitter. I'm going to hook my PS5 up on that, and as we do our future reviews here, we got an AV20 coming up that we're doing, and we'll leverage that BK-104A for that. The other thing that Orei's done is they've given me several other products, and I'll be testing this out. I'm putting together a little desktop setup. I've got a new desk that's a electronic standing desk from Very that's just came. I'll be setting that up, and I think that being able to manage my 3 monitors could be facilitated by one of these units that Orei has sent me, and that will be coming soon there. And I've got a little fuzzy audio setup that will go with that for a little desktop audio while I'm editing these videos for you. So what do you think? Do you think these Orei products are good, that it could be perhaps something that would solve a problem of yours? If not the splitter, maybe one of their switchers or extenders could be very useful in your setup. I will add, if you are in the United States, they have technical support in country. I think it's based out of Illinois that you'd be calling into. Even though these are manufactured in China, you have the comfort that you know you can call into a technical support that's in a time zone that's fairly close to you if you're in the United States. So it's another reason why I choose to work with this company. And I will add, these are pretty robust. They're all metal enclosures. They do feel like they are high quality. devices. So that's another piece of comfort I got. So I'm interested now in what do you think of? Is Orei a go-to source for you, or is there another company that you utilize? That feedback would be useful to the Ripewave community. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and hit that bell icon so you'll be notified when the next video is posted. Until then, keep evolving your audio and video experience.